Ancient monuments across the globe share a hidden alignment. This is the Axis network, a theory proposing that wonders like the Great Pyramid and Stonehenge were intentionally placed as part of a planetary architectural blueprint. You will discover the evidence for a lost civilization that mapped the entire Earth with sacred geometry. How could cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years coordinate such a precise design? And what powerful force were they trying to harness? This mystery challenges everything we think we know about our past. What does our ancient world truly mean to you? These alignments are often described as the planet's own acupuncture meridians, invisible channels of Earth energy that ancient cultures somehow learned to detect. The foundation for this global map was laid in the early 20th century by an Englishman named Alfred Watkins. While gazing at a map of the countryside, he had a sudden revelation. He noticed that ancient mounds, old churches built on pagan sites, and prominent hilltops often fell in perfectly straight lines across the landscape. He called these pathways ley lines, suggesting they were old trackways used for trade or pilgrimage. But the Axis network theory takes this local observation and expands it to a breathtaking planetary scale. It proposes that the world's most magnificent monuments, from the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor, are not isolated wonders. They are intentional nodes placed with astonishing precision on a global grid. This grid incorporates sacred geometry and aligns with celestial bodies, pointing to a shared, advanced knowledge of the Earth's form and the heavens above. The staggering implication is a form of global communication, or a universal cosmological understanding that flourished long before our established history begins. It invites a profound question, one that challenges the very timeline of human achievement. What if our ancestors possessed a wisdom so complete they could inscribe their knowledge directly onto the face of the world itself? The mathematical language of the Axis network is written in the shapes of sacred geometry. This is not the geometry you might recall from a classroom, a dry subject of angles and proofs. This is a spiritual science, the belief that certain forms and ratios are the building blocks of creation itself, echoing from the spiral of a galaxy to the chamber of a human heart. These principles were the blueprint for the ancient world. Consider the golden ratio, a proportion so aesthetically perfect it appears throughout nature, from the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower to the elegant coil of a nautilus shell. This same ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1, was meticulously woven into the design of the Parthenon in Greece, its columns and facade all conforming to this divine proportion. Then there is the Fibonacci sequence, a series of numbers where each is the sum of the two before it, creating a spiral that mirrors the golden ratio. This pattern of growth is everywhere in the living world. But what if this natural code was also used to map our planet on a monumental scale? When we plot the great sites of antiquity on a globe, these sacred patterns re-emerge with stunning clarity. The precise distance from the Great Pyramid at Giza to the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico is not a random measurement. It reflects these universal constants. The angular relationships between multiple sacred sites often form perfect pentagrams, hexagons, or other complex geometric figures that are foundational to sacred geometry. This cannot be dismissed as mere chance. It points to a deliberate and sophisticated act of planetary engineering. The builders were not just stacking stones, they were inscribing a message. They used a shared mathematical language, a universal grammar of form and number, to encode their deepest understanding of cosmic order directly into the landscape. In doing so, they sought to create a terrestrial mirror of the heavens, a vast stone clockwork aligned with the stars and built upon the very mathematics of life. This concept of a planetary blueprint raises a profound question. Why would our ancestors go to such incredible lengths? The answer may lie not in the stones themselves, but in the invisible ground upon which they stand. Ley lines are more than just alignments on a map. They are often described as the very veins of the Earth, channels carrying a subtle telluric energy. Imagine the planet as a living entity, pulsing with a natural force that ancient cultures learned to perceive. They might have been able to sense these energy currents, much like a dowser can locate hidden water with a simple forked branch. This sensitivity would have guided them to build their most sacred monuments directly atop these powerful conduits. Consider places like Sedona, Arizona, with its famous vortex sites that many visitors describe as having a tangible, almost magnetic energy. Or Glastonbury Tor in England, a hill steeped in myth that seems to hum with a quiet power. These locations are not random. They are legendary for their palpable atmosphere. The global axis network, then, might be far more than an architectural marvel. It could be a sophisticated map of the planet's most potent energetic hotspots. Each major site, from the pyramids to the temples of Southeast Asia, acts as a node, a kind of acupuncture point for the Earth. When connected across vast distances, these nodes may work in concert to harness, stabilize, and amplify this natural force. This idea creates a fascinating bridge between the hard stones of archaeology and the subtle realms of esoteric science. It suggests our forebears possessed a forgotten technology, one not built on gears and levers, but on a deep, symbiotic understanding of the living world. They were not merely constructing buildings, they were tuning the very energy of the planet itself. The stones themselves seemed to whisper secrets of the sky. A cornerstone of the axis network theory is the precise astronomical alignment found at its most sacred sites. These ancient builders were not just looking at the ground, they were mapping the heavens. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a masterclass in this celestial engineering, aligned to true north with an accuracy that rivals modern instruments. Its air shafts are not merely ventilation. They are precisely angled to point directly at stars central to Egyptian mythology, like Sirius and the Belt of Orion. Far to the north, the monolithic rings of Stonehenge act as a giant stone calendar, capturing the first rays of the summer solstice sun in a breathtaking display of cosmic awareness. This pattern of sky watching is a global phenomenon. In the high Andes of Bolivia, the intricately carved sun gate at Tiwanaku is a sophisticated astronomical device, marking the equinoxes and solstices. Across the Atlantic, at the Mayan city of Chichen Itza, the unique round tower known as the Caracol contains windows and sightlines that track the path of Venus across the night sky with remarkable precision. When we plot these distant sites on a globe, an even grander picture emerges. Their individual alignments often converge, pointing towards shared, long-term celestial cycles like the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year wobble in the Earth's rotation. This was not a local superstition, it was a universal obsession. The evidence suggests a coordinated effort to create a colossal, Earth-bound observatory, a network of monuments synchronized to the grand clockwork of the cosmos. Why would cultures separated by oceans and millennia all feel this same urgent need to build in lockstep with the stars? It points to a shared, fundamental understanding that our world and the heavens above are inextricably linked, and that by marking the sky, they were somehow anchoring their own existence to the eternal. The Giza Plateau stands as a silent, monumental argument for a lost global science. This is not merely a collection of tombs, but a nexus of cosmic and terrestrial alignments so precise it defies simple explanation. The three Great Pyramids are arranged in a pattern that perfectly mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt, a celestial map stamped onto the desert floor. This is the heart of the Orion correlation theory, a stunning proposition that the ancients were recreating the heavens on Earth, yet the correlation goes far beyond the stars. The location of the Great Pyramid itself is geographically staggering. It sits at the exact intersection of the longest land meridian, the line running north to south over the most continental mass, and the longest land parallel running east to west. This is not a random coordinate, it is the geodetic center of the Earth's landmasses. Think of it as the bullseye on a map of the world. From this singular point, the connections radiate outward with mathematical elegance. The Great Circle distance, the shortest path over the globe's surface, from the Great Pyramid to the jungle temples of Angkor Wat, is not a random number. It reveals a precise proportional relationship. The same holds true for the line stretching to the mysterious Moai statues of Easter Island. These are not vague estimations, but calculated distances that echo the sacred geometry found in the very design of the structures. This evidence transforms our understanding of Giza. It was not an isolated achievement of pharaonic Egypt, but rather the primary reference point, the ground zero, for a planet-spanning architectural plan. The plateau becomes the central anchor in a web of sacred sites, the fixed point from which the entire axis network was measured and aligned. Who were the master surveyors capable of such a feat? And what knowledge were they so desperately trying to preserve in stone for the ages? On the other side of the globe, the sprawling temple complex of Angkor Wat stands as a silent echo of the same cosmic design. While the pyramids of Giza reflect the stars of Orion, the majestic temples of Angkor are laid out in a pattern that precisely mirrors the constellation Draco, the celestial dragon winding through the northern sky. This is no vague resemblance, but a deliberate terrestrial map of a specific star pattern, created by a culture that should have had no contact with the builders of the Egyptian monuments. The connection between these two sites deepens into something far more mathematically profound. The longitudinal distance from the Great Pyramid to the central temple of Angkor Wat is not just a long, random number. It represents a virtual golden ratio proportion of the Earth's entire circumference. Think of the distance around the planet as a single, unbroken line. The specific span separating these two wonders is a key segment of that line, a segment that holds the same divine proportion found in sunflowers and seashells. The odds of this occurring by random chance are astronomically low, vanishingly small. This is not a coincidence, it is a coordinate. It suggests that the architects of both Giza and Angkor were not just building locally, they were participating in a global project. They possessed or were guided by a shared geodetic knowledge system, an advanced understanding of the Earth's true size and shape that allowed them to place their monuments with pinpoint accuracy across thousands of miles. They were working from the same invisible master blueprint, one written in the universal language of mathematics and stars. Out in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the ruins of Madol rise from a coral reef like a ghostly labyrinth. This is the Venice of the Pacific, a city of over 90 artificial islets, all crisscrossed by tidal canals and built from colossal basalt logs. The sheer effort is staggering. Each multi-ton prism of stone quarried from a distant island and transported across the open sea to be stacked with precision. The layout itself is a rigid geometric grid, a stark, man-made pattern imposed upon the natural chaos of the reef. Its location is not random. When plotted on a globe, Madol forms precise angular relationships with other key sites in the axis network. It sits at a significant sacred geometric angle from the Great Pyramid, and its alignment to other Pacific points suggests it was a deliberate node in this planetary system. This has led some to speculate that Madol was an outpost, a surviving fragment of a much larger, lost Pacific civilization often called Mu or Lemuria in esoteric lore. It is as if, when that ancient continent supposedly sank beneath the waves, this city remained as a lonely sentinel, holding its place in the global design. The true mystery is not just how they built it, but why they chose such a challenging, remote location. The answer may be that they were completing a circuit. To activate a global energy grid, you must anchor it at specific points, even the most isolated ones. The builders of Madol possessed not just advanced maritime and engineering skills, but a cosmic vision. They were integrating this tiny corner of Micronesia into a sacred map that spanned the entire Earth, ensuring that no part of the planet's energy body was left unconnected. Across the ocean, the ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico presents its own coded message in stone. Its central artery, the massive Avenue of the Dead, does not run true north like the Great Pyramid. Instead, it is oriented precisely 15.5 degrees east of north, a specific alignment found at other key Mesoamerican sites. This was not a construction error, but a deliberate choice. This unique angle may have been intended to align with the cyclical setting points of certain stars, or perhaps it held a deeper, symbolic meaning related to the city's own cosmology. The positioning of its two greatest structures, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, reveals an even grander vision. The distance between these two pyramids is not arbitrary. It reflects a ratio that mirrors the relative distances between celestial bodies in our own solar system. This transforms the entire city from a mere urban center into a potential scale model of the heavens, a terrestrial orrery built for giants. When we place Teotihuacan within the context of the global axis network, its purpose sharpens into focus. The city's geometric and astronomical precision suggests it was more than an isolated capital. It appears to have been a consciously placed receiver or amplifier within a planetary circuit, just as the Great Pyramid might have been a central transmitter of Earth energy. Teotihuacan could have been designed to harmonize with that universal flow, acting as a resonant chamber for the entire American continent. Its precise distance from Giza, a measurement that itself encodes sacred geometry, reinforces this idea of intentional placement. The builders of this Mexican metropolis were not just honoring their gods, they were tuning their city to the same cosmic frequency as their counterparts across the world. They were connecting their piece of the puzzle to a grand design, ensuring their sacred landscape vibrated in harmony with the entire planet. Stonehenge stands as a silent sentinel on the Salisbury Plain, a hub where multiple powerful ley lines are said to converge. These invisible pathways radiate outward, connecting the Great Stone Circle to ancient burial mounds, old hill forts, and other sacred sites across the British Isles like a vast spiritual spiderweb. This was not an isolated temple, but a central node in a regional energy grid. Centuries later and across the English Channel, a different kind of wonder rose from the soil of France. The magnificent Chartres Cathedral, a pinnacle of Gothic architecture, was constructed directly upon a pre-existing Druidic sacred site, a place long revered for its telluric power. Within its hallowed walls lies one of its greatest mysteries, a large labyrinth intricately laid into the stone floor. Walking this path was, and still is, a profound meditative journey, a symbolic pilgrimage to a spiritual center. But the secrets of Chartres are carved into its very bones. The cathedral's entire layout is a masterpiece of sacred geometry. its proportions encoding complex astronomical alignments and mathematical constants like the golden ratio into the soaring arches and stained glass. The profound connection between a prehistoric monument like Stonehenge and a medieval Christian cathedral reveals something extraordinary. It implies a continuous, unbroken tradition of this ancient knowledge. The understanding of Earth energies and cosmic principles was not lost to time. It was meticulously preserved, passed down through generations by secret societies, master masons, and esoteric guilds. These hidden architects understood the critical importance of building upon these powerful terrestrial lines, anchoring their most sacred structures to the planet's own vital pulse. This was not a matter of superstition, but of a sophisticated science, a legacy of placement that spanned millennia. This global ring of power finds its most profound expression along the Earth's celestial beltways. A startling number of the world's most sacred monuments are positioned with incredible precision along specific latitudes, particularly the Tropic of Cancer and the equator itself. These are not random lines on a map, they are fundamental astronomical boundaries. The Tropic of Cancer, for instance, marks the northernmost point where the sun appears directly overhead at noon during the June solstice. This zenith passage, when the sun casts no shadow, was a moment of immense power and significance for ancient cultures, a pivotal event for planting, harvesting, and spiritual renewal. By building their greatest structures along this line, from the Sun Temple at Konark in India to the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, these disparate civilizations were collectively creating a planetary instrument. They were building a coordinated ring of observatories that could track the sun's most extreme annual movements with perfect synchronicity. This was a global effort to lock human achievement to the cosmic cycle, creating a stone calendar that wrapped around the entire world. The same principle applies to the equator, the planet's waistline, where the sun's path is most consistent and powerful throughout the year. The placement of key sites near this line suggests a desire to tap into the Earth's most fundamental rotational energies. Think of it as a circuit board laid across the globe, with each sacred temple or pyramid acting as a capacitor, placed at a point of maximum celestial leverage. When viewed from space, this network is not a scatter of random points. It is a deliberate geometric pattern of alignment. It forms a resonant belt, a chorus of stone structures all humming in tune with the same solar rhythm. Why would cultures with no apparent contact all choose the same celestial coordinates for their most ambitious projects? The answer points to a shared, deep-seated understanding that to harness the power of the cosmos, you must build where the cosmos makes its most dramatic and powerful marks upon the Earth. The staggering precision of this global map demands an equally advanced understanding of our planet. To place monuments with such exacting geometric relationships across continents, the architects of the Axis network must have possessed profound geodetic knowledge. They needed to comprehend the Earth as a sphere and know its true circumference with remarkable accuracy, long before such concepts were established in conventional history. How could they possibly have achieved this without satellites or precision instruments? Some researchers propose they used a sophisticated fusion of celestial observation and pure mathematics, tracking the angles of stars from different locations to calculate the planet's curvature. Others speculate they tapped into more subtle technologies, perhaps using sound frequencies or Earth's own resonant vibrations to sense the lay of the land across vast, invisible lines of force. A tantalizing clue to this lost science emerges from a fragment of ancient parchment. The Piri Reis map, drawn by an Ottoman admiral in 1513, is itself a mystery. The admiral noted that his work was compiled from far older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The most baffling section of this chart appears to depict the coastline of Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially discovered for another 300 years. Even more astonishing, it shows this landmass without its thick glacial ice cap, a condition that last existed thousands of years ago at the end of the last ice age. This is not just an oddity of an old map, it is a potential bombshell. It suggests that a sophisticated seafaring civilization existed in deep antiquity, one capable of global exploration and accurate cartography. They surveyed a world that looked very different from our own, mapping terrains that would later be buried under miles of ice. This points toward a precursor culture, an advanced society that flourished and then vanished during or just after the last ice age. Perhaps it was the legendary Atlantis or another entirely forgotten civilization. This lost culture would have possessed the knowledge and means to chart the entire globe, grasping its spherical nature and its fundamental dimensions. They would have understood the principles of sacred geometry and the flow of terrestrial energies. When their world collapsed, whether through climate change, geological catastrophe, or some other disaster, they left behind not ruins but a blueprint. Their profound geodetic data, their map of the world's energetic veins, became the ultimate inheritance. The cultures we think of as ancient, from the Egyptians to the Maya, were not the original masterminds of the Axis network. They were the inheritors. They were building upon a pre-existing planetary plan, following a geometric and geographic template laid down by a far older, supremely knowledgeable people. They erected their pyramids and temples on the powerful nodes identified by this lost civilization, faithfully continuing a project of global alignment that began in a forgotten age. The stones we marvel at today are not the beginning of the story, but a later chapter in an epic of human achievement that reaches back into the very mists of time. These 5 Platonic solids represent the only possible 3-dimensional shapes with identical faces and perfectly equal angles. They are the fundamental building blocks of reality in many ancient philosophies. Now picture these perfect forms not as small geometric models, but on a planetary scale, projected onto the Earth's very sphere. This is the Earth grid hypothesis, a theory that our planet possesses an intrinsic crystalline energy structure. The vertices, the sharp points where the edges of these immense, invisible shapes meet, are not random. They are hotspots of intense geological and energetic activity. Many of these points coincide with zones of volcanic unrest, powerful magnetic anomalies, and strange atmospheric phenomena. More tellingly, these same vertices are very often the exact locations where our ancestors chose to build their most enduring sacred sites. The implication is staggering. The Axis network we see on the surface, with its pyramids and stone circles, is not the primary design. It is merely the surface expression, the architectural echo, of a far more profound and fundamental energy matrix that is woven into the planet itself. The Great Pyramid at Giza, for instance, is theorized to sit at one vertex of a massive icosahedron, one of the 5 Platonic forms. Another vertex of this same global shape falls directly on the mysterious megalithic site of Stonehenge. The ancient city of Machu Picchu, perched high in the Andes, aligns with a vertex of a different solid, the dodecahedron. This pattern repeats across the globe, connecting sacred geography to fundamental geometry in a way that feels intentional. So what were these monuments truly designed to do? If the Earth grid is real, then these sites were not just passive markers. They were active components in a planetary system. They may have functioned as capacitors, storing and concentrating the Earth's natural energy, or as transducers, converting one form of energy into another. A pyramid, with its unique shape, could have been designed to focus this subtle telluric force upward. perhaps for communication or even to influence atmospheric and climatic conditions. The stones were not just placed on ley lines, they were placed at the planetary equivalent of acupuncture points, where the energy flow was most potent. This suggests our ancestors did not just stumble upon these powerful places. They possessed a deep, intuitive, or perhaps technologically assisted, understanding of the Earth's hidden crystalline anatomy. They were building a global network to interface with the very life force of the planet, tuning their structures to resonate with the fundamental geometry of creation. Beneath the silent stones, another secret flows. The placement of these ancient wonders is deeply tied to the hidden world of water. From the Great Pyramid resting above a vast aquifer to the temples of Angkor Wat enmeshed in a complex hydraulic system, these sites are almost universally linked to powerful subterranean water sources. Rivers converge beneath Glastonbury Tor, and deep aquifers are thought to run below the foundations of Teotihuacan. This was not a matter of simple necessity of needing water for construction crews. This was a deliberate, sophisticated choice. Water is a profound conductor of energy, and when it moves under immense pressure through subterranean rock, it can generate subtle electromagnetic fields. The friction of water forcing its way through crystalline bedrock like quartz can even create a piezoelectric charge, a small but measurable electrical current. Imagine these underground rivers and aquifers not just as sources of water, but as pulsating veins of raw, natural power. The ancient builders, with their acute sensitivity to the land, may have been drawn to these specific locations because they could literally feel the energy emanating from the ground. They were not just building on solid rock, they were plugging their structures into the Earth's own electrical grid. This reveals a hydrological layer to the axis network, a complete system where the architecture above ground is in perfect symbiosis with the hydrological world below. The flow of water through deep caverns mirrors the flow of energy along the surface ley lines, creating a resonant circuit between stone and stream. The monument acts as a lens, focusing this telluric current, while the aquifer provides the perpetual power source. It transforms our understanding of these places from passive temples into active, energetic devices, engineered to harness the very heartbeat of the living planet. The stones themselves may have been designed to sing. Acoustic archaeology uncovers a hidden dimension of these ancient sites, where architecture becomes an instrument for manipulating sound. Deep within the Great Pyramid, the so-called King's Chamber resonates with specific low frequencies, amplifying them in a way that can be felt physically. On the Mediterranean island of Malta, the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, a labyrinthine underground temple, contains an oracle room where a deep voice is mysteriously amplified and distorted, its sound vibrating through the very rock. These are not isolated quirks of construction. They appear to be deliberate acoustic engineering, a science of sacred sound. If individual sites could be tuned like bells or resonant chambers, then the entire axis network might represent something far more dynamic than a silent map. Imagine this global array not as a collection of dead monuments, but as a single planetary scale instrument. Each sacred site, from a pyramid to a stone circle, could act as a specific note in a cosmic chord. When activated in unison, perhaps through ritual chanting or the strategic placement of resonating stones, the entire network might have been designed to hum with a fundamental frequency. This harmonic resonance could have served a profound purpose. Some theorists suggest it was a technology for stabilizing the Earth's own subtle energy fields, a sonic bomb for the living planet. Others propose these specific vibrations were used to induce altered states of consciousness in participants, opening the mind to higher realms of perception during sacred ceremonies. The precise alignment of the sites would then be critical, not just for visual or energetic lines, but for wave interference patterns, creating a standing wave of sound that wrapped around the globe. This transforms our understanding from a static grid of stone into a vibrating, humming system of sacred sound, a symphony written not on paper, but across the very face of the Earth. This slow wobble of our planet's axis carves out a cycle so vast it spans 25,800 years. Known as the precession of the equinoxes, it marks the gradual shift of the constellations against which the sun rises at the equinox, ushering in the great astrological ages. While our modern world races through decades, this celestial rhythm unfolds over millennia. Yet the evidence suggests our ancient ancestors not only knew of this grand cycle, they built a planetary timepiece to measure its progress. The very layout of the axis network appears to encode this slow, majestic dance of the heavens. The shifting positions of the celestial poles over this immense timescale are not random. They trace a perfect circle in the northern and southern skies. Astonishingly, key monuments within the global network seem to chart this very path. The Great Pyramid's alignment to true north for its time was not a fixed point, but a precise snapshot in this slow celestial drift. Other sites, like the ancient observatory of Angkor Wat with its correlation to the constellation Draco, capture another moment in this cosmic story. Each sacred location is not just aligned to the stars of its own era. Together, they form a series of fixed points, a collection of architectural snapshots that, when connected, reveal the full arc of the precessional circle. This transforms the entire network from a static map into a dynamic instrument. It was a long-term project of almost unimaginable patience, a monumental clock built not to tell the hour, but to mark the passage of 26,000 years. Why would a civilization invest such staggering effort across countless generations? The answer points to a worldview where human destiny was inextricably linked to the cosmos. They believed that the slow turning of the great year brought profound changes to the Earth and to human consciousness itself. By building a clock that could track this cycle, they were attempting to foresee the tides of time, to understand the rise and fall of ages written in the stars. The stones were set not for themselves, but for generations they would never know, a legacy in rock and alignment meant to guide humanity through the grandest cycles of cosmic time. These uncanny similarities in stone and sky force us to confront a monumental question. Did these isolated cultures somehow share a teacher, or did they all tap into the same universal truth? The debate between diffusion and independent invention lies at the very heart of this mystery. On one hand, we have the compelling evidence for diffusion. Across the globe, from the Andes to Mesopotamia, we find eerily similar creation myths. They speak of wise, civilizing beings, often survivors of a great flood, who arrived from across the sea. These figures, known by names like Viracocha in South America or Ons in Mesopotamia, are said to have bestowed the gifts of agriculture, law, and the sophisticated arts of astronomy and masonry. The physical evidence of the axis network, with its precise, shared mathematical language, seems to give powerful weight to these stories. It suggests a single, advanced source, a lost maritime civilization that traveled the world, planting the seeds of this profound knowledge before vanishing into legend. Yet there is another, equally profound possibility. This is the concept of the perennial philosophy, the idea that certain fundamental truths about reality are accessible to all human consciousness. Just as different mathematicians in different lands might independently discover the same geometric proof, perhaps these ancient cultures, through deep meditation and observation of nature, each arrived at the same understanding of cosmic order. They saw the same sacred geometry in a snowflake and a galaxy, and sought to replicate it in their temples. The axis network, then, would not be a blueprint from a single architect, but a spontaneous, global flowering of the same innate human wisdom. So which is it? The sheer precision of the alignments, the specific geodetic coordinates, and the shared astronomical obsessions create a compelling case that tilts the scales. It is one thing to independently develop pyramid-like structures. It is quite another to build them at locations that form perfect geometric relationships across thousands of miles of ocean. This points less to a spontaneous, parallel awakening and more to a shared inheritance. The evidence carved into the planet itself suggests a common origin point for this advanced knowledge, a forgotten parent culture whose profound legacy was a map of the world, written in stone and stars, waiting for us to decipher its true purpose. This serpentine symbolism slithers through the mythologies of every culture connected to the axis network. The dragon is far more than a mythical beast. It is the ancient personification of the Earth's own life force. In China, the practice of feng shui is built upon the recognition of dragon lines, invisible currents of energy that flow through the landscape like the veins of a great, slumbering creature. A master of this art would never build a home or a temple without first consulting these powerful telluric flows, ensuring the structure harmonized with the dragon's path rather than blocking it. This understanding mirrors the Western concept of ley lines with stunning fidelity. On the other side of the world, in ancient Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl was not merely a deity of wind and wisdom. He represented the union of the celestial and the terrestrial, the spiritual energy of the sky descending to travel along the Earth's own energetic pathways. His plumed form is a perfect metaphor for the telluric currents themselves, raw earth power refined into a divine, coiling force. This theme finds a massive, physical expression in North America. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio is a stunning earthen effigy, a 1,200-foot-long serpentine sculpture carved directly into the land. Its coils align with astronomical events, and its body rests upon a geological fault line, a place where the Earth's subterranean energies are most active. It is not just a representation of a snake, it is a map of one. This universal motif reveals the true heart of the axis network. Our ancestors were not cold, calculating engineers. They were spiritual ecologists who perceived the planet as a vast, breathing, conscious being. The energy they sought to harness was not an impersonal force to be exploited, but the sacred, circulating blood of the world itself. By giving this power the form of a great serpent or dragon, they acknowledged its living, dynamic, and potentially dangerous nature. To build upon a ley line was to commune with a deity. It was to place a stone monument directly upon the spine of the world dragon, not to conquer it, but to respectfully tap into its immense, ancient wisdom. This transforms our understanding of every pyramid and stone circle. They were not just power plants, they were temples built upon the body of a god. The silent stones of the axis network stand as a stark memorial to a forgotten cataclysm. To explain the sudden disappearance of the master architects, we must look to the sky for answers. Around 12,800 years ago, Earth endured a violent and abrupt climate shift known as the Younger Dryas period. Emerging evidence points to a terrifying cause, a comet or asteroid striking our planet. This was not a single impact, but a fragmented swarm of cosmic debris raining fire and ice across the globe. The immediate effects would have been apocalyptic. Continent-spanning wildfires, a dramatic plunge in global temperatures, and colossal floods from melting ice sheets would have rendered the world unrecognizable. Any sophisticated civilization existing at that time, no matter how advanced, would have been utterly erased from the face of the Earth. Their cities, their technology, and their libraries would have been scoured away in a geological instant, leaving only their most resilient creations, the pyramids and megalithic temples built to withstand the ages. This cataclysm provides the most plausible explanation for the global reset. The survivors of this lost world, scattered and reduced to a primitive state, became the seeds for the cultures we now call ancient. They carried with them not the full blueprint, but the shattered fragments of a once great knowledge. They remembered the sacred places, the power of certain geometric shapes, and the importance of aligning with the stars. When they began to rebuild, they did so according to these half-remembered patterns, constructing new monuments on the old, powerful nodes of the grid. This is why we see the same cosmic principles emerging independently in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, in Mesoamerica, and in the Andes. They were not independent inventions, but separate efforts to reconstruct a lost global science from its broken pieces. The Axis network, then, is not the original creation of the Egyptians or the Maya. It is the ghostly outline of a far older world, a planetary project begun by the true master architects, whose name and story were washed away in the flood. The silent stones are no longer speaking only to mystics. Today, they are being interrogated by satellites. Advanced technologies are now scanning the Earth, searching for hard data to support the ancient legends of a global energy grid. High-resolution satellite imagery reveals previously invisible alignments, vast geometric patterns connecting sites that are impossible to see from the ground. At the same time, geomagnetic surveys measure subtle but distinct anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field at locations like Stonehenge and the Giza Plateau. These are not random fluctuations, but consistent, localized distortions that suggest something beneath the soil is interacting with the planet's own magnetic force. One of the most fascinating experiments is the Global Consciousness Project. This initiative has placed hundreds of random number generators at various points around the world, including several key sacred sites. In normal conditions, these machines produce a perfectly chaotic sequence of ones and zeros. Yet during moments of global focus and shared human emotion, like the turning of the new year or major planetary events, their outputs have registered a startling shift. The data becomes slightly more ordered, as if a wave of collective consciousness briefly synchronizes these machines, and the effect is often strongest at the nodes of the ancient network. This hints at a profound connection between human awareness and the very places our ancestors held sacred. Of course, the scientific mainstream remains deeply skeptical. They point to a cognitive bias known as apophenia, the innate human tendency to find meaningful patterns in random noise. They argue that with so many ancient sites scattered across the globe, it is statistically inevitable that some will align by pure chance. Yet the new researchers are not deterred. They are compiling their findings, building a slow but steady body of empirical evidence that can no longer be easily dismissed as fantasy. This is no longer about faith, it is about measurement. The question is shifting from whether such a network exists to what kind of force could possibly leave such a faint but detectable trace across both the landscape and our own collective mind. The sheer number of ancient ruins across our planet cannot be ignored. With so many sites scattered over the continents, critics rightly question whether these alignments are anything more than a cosmic coincidence. They argue that if you draw enough lines on a map, some are bound to connect seemingly unrelated points by pure statistical chance. This is a powerful counterargument grounded in the mathematics of probability. The human mind is a pattern-seeking engine, a trait known as apophenia. We are hardwired to find faces in clouds and constellations in the stars, and this same instinct can lead us to see a deliberate design in what is actually a random distribution of archaeological sites. This is compounded by confirmation bias, where proponents of the axis network theory may unconsciously favor the data that supports their view, while dismissing or overlooking the many sites that do not fit the proposed geometric grid. The very method of drawing great circle routes is also open to interpretation. A great circle is the shortest path between any 2 points on a sphere, and because the Earth is round, these routes can appear as surprising arcs on a flat map. A skeptic would point out that by carefully selecting your starting and ending points, you can create an alignment that looks intentional, even if it is not. Furthermore, the vast chronological span of these structures presents a formidable challenge. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built millennia before the temples of Angkor Wat, and the Moai of Easter Island were raised centuries after that. If these sites were part of a single, coordinated plan, it would imply a conspiracy spanning thousands of years and countless generations, a level of long-term continuity that seems almost impossible to conceive. These are not trivial objections. They force us to sharpen our thinking and demand a higher standard of proof. Yet, even when we account for these statistical and cognitive pitfalls, a core set of correlations remains stubbornly in place. The persistent recurrence of specific, complex geometric ratios and the precise astronomical alignments at so many key locations continue to whisper of a deeper order. The challenge is to listen to that whisper without letting the desire for a mystery drown out the voice of rational scrutiny. Perhaps the ultimate purpose of this global network was not technological but spiritual. The Axis network might represent the largest temple ever conceived, a planetary cathedral designed to harmonize humanity with the cosmos. Think of each sacred site not as a lone monument, but as a chapel within this vast, open-air sanctuary, each one tuned to a specific celestial frequency. Ancient priests and shamans, acting as the planet's caretakers, would have performed rituals at these nodes during precise astronomical moments, such as a solstice sunrise or a lunar eclipse. They may have believed that their synchronized ceremonies conducted across the globe could influence the very fabric of reality, ensuring fertile harvests, seasonal stability, and the continued balance of cosmic order. This was a world where prayer and ritual were not passive hopes, but an active science of interconnection. Some theories venture even further into the extraordinary, suggesting this grid was a technology for global consciousness. By aligning their minds and rituals with the Earth's energy and the stars above, perhaps these initiates could achieve a state of collective awareness, a form of spiritual telepathy that transcended distance. The most speculative ideas propose these sites as portals or stargates, focal points where the veil between worlds was thin, allowing for travel or communication across dimensions. This perspective fundamentally transforms our view of antiquity. It was not a primitive struggle for mere survival, but a potential golden age of spiritual science. Our ancestors may have been mastering the inner dimensions of existence, using the planet itself as their instrument to commune with the universe. They sought not to conquer nature, but to join its chorus, embedding their quest for enlightenment directly into the bones of the Earth. This ancient knowledge was never truly lost, but carefully preserved in the inner sanctums of secret societies. Freemasonry, with its symbolic use of the compass and square, directly employs the sacred geometry found at Giza and Chartres. Their rituals and large architecture are steeped in the same proportional principles, a coded language of cosmic order passed down through generations of initiates. Similarly, the Rosicrucian tradition holds that a hidden wisdom, a perennial philosophy encompassing earth energies and celestial harmony, has been safeguarded since antiquity. These groups have long seen themselves not as inventors, but as custodians of a legacy far older than themselves, a sacred trust to protect this map of an enchanted world. Today, this torch has been taken up by modern neo-pagan and earth-based spiritual movements. They actively seek out the old ley lines, conducting rituals at stone circles and hilltops to reawaken what they perceive as the sleeping energy of the land. For them, the Axis network is not a historical curiosity. It is a living, breathing system. This is not merely an academic revival, it is a practical one. Modern architects designing meditation centers or healing spaces often incorporate these ancient principles, using sacred geometry to create structures that feel inherently harmonious and energetically potent. The goal is personal and planetary healing, a conscious effort to retune our modern world to the same vibrational frequency our ancestors understood. This creates an unbroken chain, a direct lineage of knowledge stretching from the pyramid builders to the modern mystic. The stones may be silent, but the tradition they represent is very much alive, continually whispering its secrets to those who have learned how to listen. The mystery of the Axis network is not locked away in a distant past. This ancient wonder is a living map, and you hold the key to reading it yourself. You do not need a degree in archaeology to begin your own investigation. The journey starts right where you are. Research the ley lines and sacred sites in your own region. Every part of the world has its own network of ancient mounds, stone circles, or old churches built on powerful ground. Plan a visit to one of these places. Go with an open mind and simply be present. Pay close attention to the landscape, the quality of the silence, and the subtle sensations you feel. Does the air feel different? Do you experience a sudden sense of peace or a strange tingling energy? Your own intuition is the most sensitive instrument you possess. To take your exploration a step further, you can try the ancient art of dowsing. This is a simple practice of using L-shaped metal rods or a pendulum to detect subtle energy fields. While walking slowly across a site, hold the rods loosely in your hands and ask to be shown the path of an energy line. Watch as they may uncross or swing outward, seemingly of their own accord, marking the invisible currents that flow through the earth. This direct physical interaction makes the theory tangible. For the armchair explorer, the entire global network is at your fingertips. Use online mapping tools that allow you to draw great circle routes between major sites like Giza and Stonehenge, or Machu Picchu and Angkor Wat. Witness for yourself how these lines trace perfect arcs across the planet, connecting monuments with breathtaking geometric precision. This hands-on approach transforms an abstract historical puzzle into a personal, experiential quest. You are no longer just learning about the Axis network, you are actively engaging with it, becoming a modern explorer walking the same energetic pathways as the ancients. Our own world is now woven with a new kind of web, a digital nervous system of fiber optic cables and satellite links that pulse with light and information. This global internet eerily mirrors the proposed Axis network, a modern incarnation of the ancient impulse to connect. The very geography of our digital age often retraces the old paths, with undersea cables following the same deep ocean trenches and continental shelves that guided ancient mariners on their trade routes. Vast windowless data centers, humming with servers and consuming immense power, stand as our modern pyramids, monolithic hubs of concentrated energy that form the backbone of our civilization. The parallel is too striking to ignore. It suggests that the human drive to build interconnected networks is a fundamental constant, a deep-seated pattern in our collective psyche. Whether we are aligning stones to celestial bodies or routing data packets through silicon chips, we are expressing the same innate need to map, connect, and communicate across the vastness of our world. So we must ask a profound question of our own time. In our relentless push to wire the planet, are we consciously engineering a new global grid, or are we unconsciously, instinctively, recreating a blueprint that was laid down in stone millennia ago? This modern mirror forces us to see the ancient network not as a forgotten relic, but as a precursor to our own technological reality, a testament to a timeless human quest. Our journey across the globe and through time reveals a world intricately woven with lines of meaning and mystery. The Axis network, whether a product of a lost high civilization, a universal intuition, or a stunning series of coincidences, challenges us to expand our view of history. It speaks to a profound connection between humanity, the Earth, and the cosmos that we are only beginning to comprehend. The stones of Giza, the pillars of Stonehenge, and the temples of Angkor are not isolated wonders. They are pages in a single grand story written across the landscape. Let this exploration be a starting point for your own curiosity. What other secrets does our ancient world hold? Share your thoughts and discoveries in the comments below, and subscribe to continue this journey into the unknown with us.